Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewige. The top stories tonight. Senate passes for third reading 2 of 4 tax bills before it, following approval of reports by Committee on Finance. Information Minister appeals to journalists not to give undue publicity to criminal activities in their reportage. Black smoke signals no pope was elected at first ballot as cardinals prepare for next round of voting on Thursday.
In business, ExxonMobil announces $10 billion investment in Nigeria's deepwater sector to boost oil production.
And in sports, Nigeria's Flying Eagles secured the spot in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations following a 2-2 draw with Kenya. Details in a moment.
Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. The Nigerian Senate has passed for third reading 2 among the 4 tax bills currently before the National Assembly. This followed the approval of a report by its Committee on Finance after it commenced a clause-by-clause consideration of the tax reform bills currently before the National Assembly. The bills passed include the Nigerian Revenue Service Bill and the Nigerian Tax Administration Bill. The passage comes after the lawmakers spent over 2 hours making necessary considerations and amendments on several clauses in the bill following the submission of the committee's report.
It's one of the areas that have generated a lot of controversies. We have addressed that, and what we did with that recommendation is that the federal government will be taking 10% from the VAT distribution. We did not amend the present VAT structure. We left it at 7.5% instead of increasing it as was recommended.
Propose an amendment from 3% to 2% because the subject matter is all-encompassing. It involves both oil and non-oil revenue. And what will be accrued to the coffers will be more than the budget of 15, 16, 17 states of the Federation. So for that, let's reduce it to 2%.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act number 13, 2007, and then enact the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act to establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, charged with the powers of assessment, collection of, and accounting for revenue accruing to the government of the Federation and for related matters 2025, third reading taken and passed. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to provide for the assessment, collection of, and accounting for revenue accruing to the Federation, federal, states, and local governments, prescribe the powers and functions of tax authorities, and for related matters 2025, third reading taken and passed.
Nigeria's Ministers of Defense and Environment have presented their scorecards to citizens ahead of the May 29th second-year anniversary celebration. Both ministers say much has been achieved in the last 2 years in fulfilling promises of the renewed hope agenda to citizens as expected from their ministers. News Center's correspondent Amadine Uyi reports.
In attendance were officials from the Ministry of Information and National Orientation, the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Environment. The Minister of Information and National Orientation says that the forum presents an opportunity for the ministers in attendance to present their key achievements to citizens in the last 2 years.
This forum presents a vital opportunity for both ministers to update Nigerians on key achievements, ongoing initiatives, and policy directions of their ministries.
He expressed optimism that citizens will be informed by the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Environment, and the nation's armed forces in achieving their key objectives.
I am confident that Nigerians will hear of the laudable efforts of our armed forces in protecting lives and property, as well as in countering insurgency, terrorism, banditry, and other forms of criminality throughout our country. Similarly, we will be fully updated on the key milestones of the Ministry of Environment, especially our nation's ecosystem and other green initiatives being championed by the Honorable Minister.
Both ministers took time to highlight some of their achievements.
We all know that Nigeria is facing a critical situation as far as our forest is concerned, because Nigeria is regarded as one of the countries that has the least forest cover in the world, because our forest cover is far below the minimum, which is 25%. Our own is far below 10%. So under this administration, we have gone ahead to see how far we can regrow this forest, how far can we move into addressing the issue in our forest. So the first thing that we did is try to plant trees, encourage people and youth and women to plant trees.
In collaboration with our international partners, we have also enhanced intelligence sharing and deployed advanced surveillance technology in the Lake Chad region, improving our cross-border response capabilities. Over the past 2 years, our ministry has made significant strides in enhancing national security, modernizing our defense capabilities, and promoting regional and international cooperations.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation assured citizens that all cabinet ministers will be given an opportunity to present their scorecard to Nigerians. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Many thanks, Amadine. We told you earlier that the Nigerian Senate has passed for third reading 2 among the 4 tax bills currently before the National Assembly. To give us some perspective on this, we're joined now by CEO of Finance with Mokhtar and economic analyst Mokhtar Mohammed. Thank you very much for giving us your time. In what ways do these tax reforms align with President Tinubu's broader fiscal and economic agenda for Nigeria?
Thank you. I think this is one of the best economic bill that President Tinubu have had. I have been saying it over and over again that this is one of the best reform in terms of the tax reform bill. It's one of the best that we've seen from any administration. What I like about it is the kind of growth that we create, especially in the informal sector, smaller business, giving them tax, really big tax holiday. And not only that, also the bigger companies will begin to, instead of a company income tax of almost 30%, then you are going to get about 25% company income tax. That will allow for expansion to other parts of Nigeria and create jobs, because 5% is huge when it comes to taxes. Then again, that also, what you say about that tax also is the taxing of the rich. The rich are going to pay more for a lot of things. Though I think that also should be commensurate with the kind of services they will have, because sometimes you look at the rich class in Nigeria, they have to provide security for themselves and others. So if you are saying those bills are not going to come into play, then that means you also need to begin to improve security around a lot of people. So for me, that's one of the best bills that I think in terms of reform, especially economic reform, that bill is very balanced, especially also in the way it wants to grow smaller businesses. And also that bill also take care of the multiple taxation that will be complaining about, especially when you have to move your goods from one state to another. So for me, again, that's another game changer. That bill also will address what the government tend to be relief for maybe for 6 months or 7 months in terms of removing tariff on agricultural household item. That bill also will address it. So it's one bill that I think is one of the best bills in terms of economic reform.
The Bill proposes a gradual increase in VAT from 7.5% to 15% by 2030. What are some of the anticipated economic and social impact of these phased increase, especially for businesses and consumers?
I think that part of it has not been agreed upon, because I remember when the governors met with them, that was the part of the bill that they said should not be implemented, especially when it comes to that VAT, value added tax. I think that if that is implemented, it's going to add more hardship to Nigeria, because when you talk about value added tax, then you're talking moving to about 15%. That means you have increased the cost of goods by 5% in an already thriving economy. I don't think that would be nice. And I think the governors have made that known to the tax reform bill. They made that known to the Senate, and I think the Senate also made that known to the chairman of the tax reform bill. For me, I don't think that is obtainable now. Again, when you look at the value added tax, remember there's a lot of controversy around it. Also, is it going to be paid to the states that also made that where those companies are located, or is it going to be sent into the federation account and be shared within the 3 tiers of government? You know, that's an ongoing issue. The governors met, that's why they didn't support this bill, and it was agreed that the status quo will remain, whereby this will go to the federation account. And I think it was then agreed that there should be a suspension in terms of an increase in the value added tax.
The Senate has approved a new VAT sharing formula. That's 10% for federal government, 55% for states, and 35% for local governments. And they've replaced the derivation with place of consumption in the allocation. What are the implications of these changes for revenue distribution among Nigerians' regions?
Something you should share about, when you look at the revenue that will be coming to the local government. Remember also the Labour government have had that Supreme Court bill that will also help them to say they also will not be getting directly from the federation account. Before now, it has to go to the governors, and the governors in turn have to pass it to them. So one should also be excited about that. That also will bring development to the grassroots ordinarily, but even the state also. But when you look at governance and when you look at what they've even received since President Tinubu came to power in terms of revenue allocation, it has improved. But yet the life of the people have not really improved, and we have not seen the kind of development we've seen. But some of the governors will now tell you that some of this money are not being used to pay salary, because the minimum wage have been hiked to about 70,000 naira. Ordinarily, it's something to be excited when you begin to see government have more fund to do more developmental projects to improve upon, especially the local government and also the state. But unfortunately, if we want to go with the antecedent of what we've seen from state thus far, it's not something to be excited about. Or maybe you never can say there could be a change as regard this going forward.
We're always often good on paper, but I mean, in application, that's where we have challenges. What would be some benchmarks or indicators rather we should use to assess the success of these tax reforms over the next 5 years, perhaps?
I think you haven't taken it. I think we don't even have to wait for 5 years. We have to begin to see this result in the next 1 year. What are my benchmark if I have to look at it? I want to see that multiple taxation stopped, multiple levies stopped, almost 200 and something, over 200 levies. I want to see that stop. That's what this bill is trying to adapt. But I adopt. But I don't think that will happen, because some states are already they are seeing levies as a means of revenue. So I want to see how that would work, whereby we'll not have so much levies again. I also be looking at how this tax will drive growth in one of Nigeria's most vibrant sector, the informal sector, the small businesses, how this will help them expand, how this will help them grow their businesses. That's one of the benchmarks I want to see. Revenue definitely will increase, especially to the local government. I want to see how that will also help the local government in terms of building infrastructure, bringing governance to the grassroots. That, for me, are the three major areas I'll be looking in this bill, and also see how these bills will also address those areas of social investment, especially in the area of healthcare and also in the area of education.
Mox, as always, thank you for speaking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Coming up, House of Representatives seeks subsidy for the treatment of cancer in Nigeria. We'll tell you more after this short break. Glad you're still watching. This is tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Senate passes for third reading 2 of 4 tax bills before it, following approval of report by Committee on Finance. Information Minister appeals to journalists not to give undue publicity to criminal activities in their reportage. Black smoke signals no pope was elected at first ballot as cardinals prepare for next round of voting on Thursday. Nigeria's Information and National Orientation Minister, Mohammed Idris, has appealed to journalists to not give prominence to stories emanating from the activities of bandits and terrorists in the country. He gave the charge during his opening remarks at the ministerial press briefing in Abuja on Wednesday, where he noted that the war on terror wasn't just about boots and guns, but also about the mind. He argued that it was better if media reports about terror activities were not put on the front page at all.
It is also a battle for the hearts and minds of our people, one that terrorist groups are actively exploiting through propaganda, especially on social media platforms. I therefore call on my colleagues, media professionals and editors to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives.
Let's cross now to public affairs analyst Femi Lawson for this conversation and his perspective on the issues. Help us make some sense of the definition here. How does the government define undue publicity in the context of media coverage of terrorists and bandit activities?
Thank you, Felicity. For me, I think the Honorable Minister is unnecessarily getting carried away by the virtue of his incumbent position, especially when you look at a man who himself has been a media entrepreneur, president of the country today, has been a media entrepreneur. And I think it is as simple as saying that the Honorable Minister does not, or has made rather, an attempt to frame ignorance of press freedom, which is not just a matter of constitutionality as far as our country is concerned, but also a key component, a key ingredient to a functional democracy. What the minister is attempting to do can be simply defined as media censorship, because reportage of activities of criminals, insurgent activities, terror attacks, and the likes are not only means of exposing the activities of these criminals, but also means of cautioning and guiding the citizenry and even the security agencies in the case of a possible future attack by these criminals. As much as one can sympathize with the government because of the volume of the pressure the government has been subjected to due to the activities of these criminal elements, we cannot, for that reason, undermine a key component of our democracy, which is press freedom. Trying to tell the media to limit their reportage of the activities of these criminals amount to media censorship, and I think it's not a way to go, especially for a minister who himself has been in the media under a president who is also a media entrepreneur.
Okay, I was just going to jump in and ask some would argue that he was more focused on the sensationalizing of some of these stories and the prominence that's given to it. He's asking for some decorum. And on the flip side of this argument, as much as there is press freedom, there is ethics guiding the practice of journalism. And one of them is to minimize or do no harm in the act of reporting. So when you add that to the argument, some would say he does have a point when the choice is often to go for what is more sensational than the facts behind some of these stories.
When media organizations resort to sensationalizing stories, especially while the such medium reports stories as it may not have been the reality on the ground. Of course, not only is the minister right in demanding for decorum, in the reportage of stories, it is even beyond the minister because there are regulatory organizations, the NBC, even the National and the Union of Journalists, and other organizations that would actually wade into this and correct such sensational approach to reporting stories. But I sense that the opinion of the minister is beyond that, especially when he said, no, we don't have to put these stories on the front page and the like. I want to disagree with the Honorable Minister that Nigerians deserve to know the true state of insecurity, the true state of the operation of this criminal element. Sometimes that we have refused to call terrorists, call them bandits, headers, and all sort of funny nomenclature.
Mr. Lawson, at some point, at some point, I do remember the caveats that sort of became a thing. Instead of calling these people terrorists, the literature was changed to bandits. There was no definition as to who these persons are because we don't know them. That's just an aside thought. But for the purpose of education as well, in what ways can sensational reporting on terrorism and banditry inadvertently serve the agenda of these criminal groups?
But in most cases, we try to, undermine the potency of their activities, especially when you have to refer to people who are terrorists as mere bandits, sometimes as armed headers and also. So it is not even the sensationalizing the stories or the news. It's not even the problem. What we are even doing as a society, as government, is even more grievous than what the media is seemingly doing. For me, calling the spade a spade will do more good than asking the media not to report it in a sensational manner. For God's sake, it has almost become a deliberate policy of states and the media to refer to bloody terrorists as mere sometimes as mere armed why we're supposed to. So, if you look at the fear of sensationalism, I think there are more issues that can be attributed to government and even individual approach
to Mr. Lawson,
than what the media is reporting.
We'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
In other development, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to provide subsidies for cancer treatment, related drugs, including free cancer screening, to reduce the cost burden on patients across the country. Lawmakers, reacting to a motion on the need to subsidize cancer care, expressed concern over the high cost of treatment, often running into millions of naira, as well as the limited availability of radiation therapy machines and treatment centers. While calling for urgent expansion of cancer treatment centers and the provision of more radiation treatment machines nationwide, they say the high cost of treatment has led to avoidable deaths.
Mr. Speaker, disturbed that the rising burden of cancer is causing a shortage of funding for cancer control diseases, with public financing being considered the most appropriate. Cognizant of the urgent need for government intervention to subsidize cancer treatment and drugs for indigent patients in Nigeria.
As we speak, the radiation therapy machines are not even available. You have just one at the National Hospital. The next place you can be referred to is Lagos or Calabar, and that's just it.
Because we are talking about treatment here, I want to add the prayer that federal government should make screening free. Because of this early detection we are talking about, this will enable people to always go for a screening exercise.
Tonight returns shortly. Stay with us. Banditry in northwest Nigeria has forced thousands from their home, turning once thriving communities into ghost towns. Families who once lived in peace now struggle to survive, crammed into makeshift shelters with little hope of returning home. Katsina State is among the worst hit, yet there are no official camps, no structured aid, just shattered lives and fading dreams. In this special report, our correspondent Jamil Mabai brings us the heartbreaking stories of those living in the shadows of fear.
This was not the life Aisha and her little sister Rafa'atu dreamed of. Once, they lived comfortably, going to school, playing freely. Now, home is a cramped, crumbling shanty. Their future uncertain, their safety gone. I asked the little Rafa'atu why they left their village. She mutes one word, bandits, that shattered their world. Rafa'atu used to go to school. Now, she doesn't even know if she will ever return. Like thousands across northwest Nigeria, her family is trapped in a crisis with no end in sight. Katsina is among the hardest hit. No IDP camps, no government shelters, just shanties. For families who once owned homes, this is now the only option.
Gidana na buge da siminti shigiwa uku.
Daki nawa?
Daki uku. Sai dakin hatsi guda. Hudu kenan. Sai zaure. Sai kitchen. Duka akwai. Amma zaman zo nan cikin kara.
No mattress, no bed, just the bare floor.
Ina ba wai labarin ka jana batun katifa sauki ya zo kenan. Bai daɗi. Amma an babu daɗi ai duk inda ka samu dan tabbata ne zamu shiga. Dan shigun da mu da iyali yawa.
Yet, for these families, it is still safer than home because home is now a war zone.
I am not to have Allah Kono Dakavan bringing a machine. For one of Dakavan in Tayama, Allah Vanza. Will I have a machine? You want to enter at the
Bandits don't just steal property, they steal lives. They kidnap, they kill, they terrify. And for those who escape, the trauma lingers.
Buga mai waya sai dan ta'addan ya bude baki ya ce min ba shi bane ba hakili bane ba ni ne dan ta'adda nace kai ne dan ta'adda yace ina ce subhanallahi ni Allah mun tsakani da kai sai ce sauran ni nace ni yace ni yace nace to mun yi ba ni ba a ta sabgar da ban je ba amma saboda wannan kalmar da wannan dan ta'adda ya mun nace ba ni zuwa ban je ba wallahi Allah idan maza annan mutanen ba su kin gani sun
This is the reality for thousands in Katsina, displaced, forgotten, living in shadows. They did not choose this life. Banditry forced it upon them. And until something changes, their suffering will only grow. In Katsina, for News Central, I am Jamil Mabai.
Many thanks, Jamil. A celebration of life now. Dignitaries and well-wishers converged on Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital, for a memorial and a day of tributes in honor of the late Ijaw icon, Chief Edwin Clark. Clark, who served in various capacities within state, regional and federal governments, was a prominent voice in the agitations of the Niger Delta. Dignitaries present include former President Goodluck Jonathan, former Vice President Namadi Sambo, General Yakubu Gowon, former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi, constitutional lawyer Michael Zahome, and leaders of several social-cultural groups, among others.
He was a very courageous person, very vocal, and one key thing, he believed in the unity of this country. People may seem as controversial in one way or the other, but if you listen to all his statements, it's about a country that must remain one, a country that every section, every individual should have the same treatment. These are the qualities of E.K. Clark. We cannot replace him. All what we have to do is to make sure that we come up with annual lecture or something that will continue to advocate his own vision and philosophy.
He had done very well, and all along he is fighting for a Nigeria that is fair, Nigeria that is justice, Nigeria that is equity. And this is what he has told us, he's left for us, to make sure that all Nigerians continue to ensure that Nigeria live as one country, one united, with justice, equity, and fair play.
I am also sure that many of us here will, in the balance of our lives, strive to keep his struggles for the redemption of our country alive. And by the grace of God, achieve the dreams of our founding fathers for a country of bountiful opportunities, an exemplary citadel for peace, progress, and justice.
In a move to strengthen ties with the media, the Rotary Club of Isheri North, under District 9112, paid a courtesy visit to News Central. The visit comes ahead of the investiture of its fifth president, Rotarian Michael Adeleye. Adeleye, who led the delegation, stressed the need for media collaboration to amplify Rotary's impact. The club also extended an invitation to News Central's managing director, Mr. Kayode Akintemi, to speak and receive an award at the upcoming investiture.
We particularly come in here because we know the pedigree of the managing director, editor-in-chief of this station, who happens to be a friend of over 35 years that we've been together. And then obviously we want him to actually give us that opportunity to partner with us, because we carry out a lot of projects in the community and beyond that community. So we need a platform that can actually showcase what we do, so people understand what positive impact we give to society. So by the time we come to you and say, please, we have a project, give us some money as a corporate beggar, once you know what we do, what we stand for, you'll be obliged to actually do that for us.
The biggest achievement we've achieved as a club this year, it's a club being inducted as one of the peace building clubs, into the Peace Corps of Rotary International. So Rotary Club in Isheri North happens to be a Peace Corps club, which means we have 5 members of our club who have joined the Rotary Action Group for Peace. So our club this year became a Rotary Action Group for Peace.
I am truly honored to be invited as a keynote speaker, and I am truly grateful to be considered worthy of getting an award from the Rotary Club, Isheri North, District 9112. So thank you so much for that. Requesting that we partner with Rotary is almost a case of done deal to a large extent.
We don't have a new pope yet. Thick black smoke emerged from the Sistine Chapel's chimney on Wednesday in a sign that cardinals failed to elect a new pope in their first conclave vote. The 133 voting cardinals have been isolated inside the historic chapel since Wednesday evening, tasked with casting secret ballots to choose a successor to Pope Francis, who died on April 21 of a stroke and heart failure. If no cardinal receives 2/3 of the votes, the ballots are burned with a chemical additive that produces black smoke, which signals to the outside world that the next pope has not yet been chosen. There seems to be a lot of optimism that we're getting an infusion of $1.5 billion into deep water oil field. Perpetua joins us now for details of this and other stories.
Definitely.
Should we really be optimistic?
Absolutely. This is an interesting one, especially because Nigeria at this time needs to ramp up crude oil production. We need it more than ever. So yes, this is a good time and we cannot wait for this to actually come upstream. But of course, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you all the details. Stay with us. Nigeria's oil regulator has expressed optimism over ExxonMobil Corporation's plan to invest $1.5 billion in a deep-water oil field. As Africa's leading oil producer, Nigeria aims to increase its output, particularly in Usan field, while also advancing developments in Owowo and Era. The investment, anticipated within 2 years, is crucial for reviving production levels that fell below half of the 2.4 million barrels per day target in 2022. Guinea has begun the process to revoke Emirates Global Aluminium EGA's mining license, as reported by sources familiar with the situation. EGA, which operates one of Guinea's largest bauxite mines through its Guinea Alumina Corporation subsidiary, has been in conflict with the government since October, when its bauxite exports and operations were suspended over customs duty issues. The government has notified EGA of the license withdrawal. This action aligns with a broader trend in resource-rich West African nations seeking greater control over mineral resources. Guinea is the world's second-largest bauxite producer, following Australia. The Federal Reserve announced on Wednesday that it will maintain its benchmark interest rate between 4.25% and 4.5%, leaving borrowing costs unchanged for credit cards, loans, and auto financing. This decision, widely anticipated, reflects the Fed's ongoing efforts to combat inflation, which currently stands at 2.4%, above its target of 2%. While the economy shows signs of slowing, the Fed has opted for a cautious approach with a 72% chance of a rate cut by July 2025. Economists warn that new tariffs could further impact economic growth, potentially raising prices by up to 3% for households. To stock markets now, NGX rally extends midweek on banking, consumer goods demand, bringing months to date and year-to-date returns to plus 3.0% and 5.8% respectively. Now let's take a look at the snapshot. We can see it's up there 0.45%. And we can see market capitalization 68.10 trillion naira, and you have the all-share index at 108,849.83. Now let's take a look at sectoral performance. For the sectoral performance, banking stocks spearheaded the midweek rally with significant gains in GTCO, Zenith Bank and Fidelity Bank. And you can see it right here, 2.12% up. That's for banking. And of course, you go to insurance. Insurance is down 0.15%. And that's not the only one that declined. We also have oil and gas declining as a result of profit taking in Owando. So oil and gas is down 160 basis points, or you can call it 1.60%. Now to consumer goods. Consumer goods did well. It maintained its upward trend, and that was boosted by Nigerian breweries, international breweries, Champion, Honeywell Flour, and Dangote Sugar. Finally, you have industrial goods also up 15 basis points. And that's our offering on business tonight. I am Perpetual Fast Repeater. Tonight continues.
I have a Doka here for some sports headlines. Flying Eagles are through to the quarterfinals here.
Definitely up to the quarterfinals of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. I'll tell you how they got there in just a short while. Of course, in sports, it's all about the Nigeria's Under-20 team, the Flying Eagles, who have secured the spot in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, following a hard-fought 2-2 draw against Kenya in the final Group B clash in Cairo, Egypt. Goals from Barobo Arieri and captain Daniel Bameyi ensured Nigeria twice came from behind after Kenya struck early through Wanganya and William Gitmo. The results, combined with Morocco's 3-1 victory over Tunisia, confirms Nigeria's qualification as group runners-up with 5 points. The Flying Eagles now prepare for a knockout battle, staying unbeaten in the group stage and keeping their World Cup hopes alive. In the Nigeria Premier Football League now, match commissioners have been directed to ensure that all clubs and their coaches complied fully with post-match protocols, which includes interviews with journalists. Chairman of the NPFL, Benga Elegbele, passed on the directive through the matchday situation room, where the league operations interact with match commissioners real-time to ensure smooth matchday management. The match commissioners were further directed to include in their report any club and coach that refuses to honor post-match media chat. Now, some coaches are known to storm out of the field in anger when their team loses. The monetary sanction is aimed to be a deterrent to curb such unsporting conducts. Still talking about football in Nigeria, Rivers Angels of Port Harcourt have advanced into the semi-finals of the 2025 Women's President's Federation Cup. The Jewels of Rivers defeated Remo Stars Ladies 3-1 on penalties after it ended 1 apiece in regulation time at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. Elsewhere, Nasarawa Amazons thrashed Sunshine Queens 4-0 to advance to the last 4, while Ibom Angels beat Heartland Queens 4-3 on penalties after a 1-all draw in regulation time. Now, Nigeria Women's Football League defending champions Edo Queens left it late to defeat Giant Killers Unification Ladies by a lone goal via Goodness Osigwe's winner from the sports. The semi-finals pairings will see Rivers Angels take on Ibom Angels, while Edo Queens will confront Nasarawa Amazons. Moving on to Egypt now, Egyptian football giant Zamalek have officially parted ways with head coach Jose Peseiro. Now, the decision came on the heels of a disappointing 2-2 draw with National Bank. Peseiro, who previously managed Nigeria Super Eagles, was appointed in February. However, his tenure failed to deliver the expected success. The club crashed out of the CAF Confederation Cup at the quarterfinal stage after a defeat to South Africa's Stellenbosch. On the domestic front, Zamalek currently sits third in the Egyptian Premier League, trailing behind Pyramids Football Club and Al-Ahly. Under Peseiro's leadership, the team played 17 matches, recording 7 wins, 8 draws, and 2 losses. Now, talking about losses as a wrap-up in the UEFA Champions League, Arsenal Football Club of England have actually lost to Paris Saint-Germain 2-1 in the other semi-finals, talking about the second leg, and it ended 3-1 on aggregate in favor of PSG. So it means that the finals will see Inter Milan take on PSG right there in the UEFA Champions League. And that's all on sports. I am Udoka Njoko.
It's now time for some entertainment news.
Tonight on Entertainment, In a major development, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has dropped its earlier allegations of fraudulent diversion of gospel singer Mercy Chinwo's earnings against music executive Ezekiel Onyedikachi, popularly known as EZT. Instead, the EFCC arraigned him on an amended 8-count charge for failing to disclose his company's financial transactions and engaging in unauthorized foreign exchange deals. The charges filed at the Federal High Court in Lagos allege that EZT and his company Easy Global Concept Limited received over $255,000 between 2022 and 2023. Without complying with regulatory requirements, including dealings with unapproved forex operators, EZT pleaded not guilty and sought bail through his counsel, who claimed the matter could be resolved amicably out of court. The EFCC opposed the bail application, but the presiding judge, Justice Chukwujeku Aneke, ordered that the defendant be released to his lawyer pending a ruling scheduled for May 9th. Tensions rose after the hearing when EFCC operatives attempted to rearrest EZT outside the courtroom, but a senior official intervened, allowing him to leave peacefully. Jay-Z has updated his defamation lawsuit against attorney Tony Busby and Jane Doe, now claiming he suffered financial losses exceeding $190 million due to false sexual assault allegations. The reversed court filing details how the accusation cost him contracts worth at least $20 million, a $55 million personal credit line, and a $115 million loan for his company, Rock Nation, as well as damaging his standing in the sports and entertainment industry. The lawsuit stems from a now dismissed claim filed by Jane Doe, alleging that Jay-Z and Diddy raped her in 2000 when she was 13. Jay-Z initially sued for defamation in March following the case dismissal and has since expanded his scope of his claims, asserting the false allegations and resulting media coverage severely impacted his business dealings and public image. That's all on Entertainment Tonight.
Finally, on the news tonight, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has released its final report on the helicopter crash that killed Herbert Wigwe, former Group Chief Executive Officer of Access Holdings PLC, along with his family and others. According to the report, the crash, which claimed the lives of Wigwe, his wife Doreen, their first son Chizi, and Abimbola Ogunbajo, the former group chairman of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, has been attributed to a combination of pilot's disorientation and the helicopter company's negligence. The incident, which occurred on February 9, 2024, near the Nevada border in California, resulted in the death of all 6 passengers aboard the helicopter registered N130CZ. The NTSB's report found that the primary cause of the crash was the pilot's decision to continue the flight under visual flight rules, VFR, despite encountering instrument meteorological conditions. And that's the news tonight, but before we go, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Senate has passed for third reading 2 of 4 tax bills before it, following approval of report by Committee on Finance. Information ministers appealed to journalists not to give undue publicity to criminal activities in their reportage. We also told you that black smoke signals there is no pope elected as yet at first ballot, as cardinals prepare for next round of voting on Thursday. Do send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on all social media platforms at News Central TV. You can watch News Central TV live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.